dude, you want to skate? You want to die? Skate or die. Woo!
A game made for the times. Skateboarding was on the rise, so it was like punk rock kind of stuff, and man, that game was dope.
One of the characters was named Rodney Recluse and had a purple mohawk, but kind of looked like Rodney Dangerfield, and he got no respect.
And there's different, different events you can essentially go to. It's not just a half pipe.
The original game has a number of events that you can compete in either free play to practice or in a tournament mode.
There were 2 ramp events, freestyle and high jump, 2 downhill events, and pool jousting, which is like a gladiator thing.
Well, in the pool joust, you had to fight the king of skateboarding, Lester. I think it was Rodney Dangerfield's son or something.
Yes.
They kind of alluded to that.
I love the half pipe. If you could get the half pipe right, because it's so damn hard.
Right.
It felt good if you got it right.
You had the street race where you can punch your opponent while you were going along.
This game was the 80s to me. I mean, skateboarding's popularity, the attitude, it had it all.
My favorite thing about Skate or Die, just attitude-wise, is I believe it's in the downhill jam, where at the end there's the cop car, and if you can ollie onto the cop car, which is much harder than it seems, the sirens on the cop car go off, which I thought was a nice touch. Phantasy Star by Sega on the Master System is one of probably the 3 defining console RPGs.
So Phantasy Star hits first. Unfortunately, it's on the Master System, which was being crushed by the NES. So not that many people got to play it, which is a shame, because it's a great game.
Phantasy Star was one of the first story-driven games released in the West, and also one of the first to feature a female protagonist.
Alice is the main character. And the story is, the evil King Lassic kills her brother, and she sets out to get revenge.
You don't kill her brother. That's just, you don't do that. Yeah. She liked her brother.
He messed with the wrong chick.
For me, Phantasy Star is almost a combination between Final Fantasy and Star Wars, because it's like a space saga with RPG elements.
At this point in time, most role-playing games were firmly set in the realm of sword and sorcery.
Really good graphics in the game, way ahead of their time.
Yeah, really thought out well.
All the NPCs in the towns just stood completely still.
The dungeons in Phantasy Star were incredibly well done, with the movement, the turning of the corners, the 3D effect. It was full screen. You didn't see stuff like that on 8-bit consoles.
You didn't.
Phantasy Star was one of the first RPGs to feature animated monster encounters.
The backgrounds during the battles are amazing. They reflect where you actually were. Like if you're on a beach, it shows like the tide rolling in and out. If you're in the woods, it shows trees in the background.
And it also had 3 different planets that you could travel to.
Each of them having their own different type of environment, their own different type of enemies.
The big 3 that come out of Japan in terms of Japanese role-playing games in the 80s. The Dragon Quest series, the Final Fantasy series, and the Phantasy Star series.
It was like, I like Phantasy Star. Oh, I like Final Fantasy. Well, you spell fantasy with a PH. I spell it with an F because we know how to spell.
Phantasy Star is definitely one of the most important RPG franchises in history.
It's really an amazing 8-bit game, and it's a testament to what you could do on an 8-bit system.
Metal Gear is an overhead military action-adventure stealth game that was originally released in 1987 by Konami for the MSX2 computer system over in Japan. And in 1988, it was brought to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
So you play as Solid Snake, and you have to infiltrate Outer Heaven and destroy Metal Gear, but stealthily.
Getting into fights in this game is even more deadly than it is in later entries in the series. You do not want to wake up guard dogs. You do not want to alert any sort of guards at all.
It's not the most transparent game in knowing what you need to do.
Kind of like Zelda, where you can kind of go everywhere, but Metal Gear was, you had a set goal, but just different ways of approaching it, and that just blew my mind as a kid. I love that.
You know, you had binoculars so you can see the next screen over. That's a cool concept, right? You had to find key cards, but sometimes you didn't know where the hell to go with the key cards, right? That's part of the fun of Metal Gear. Trying to figure out what weapons you use to defeat the bosses, things like that.
There were a lot of changes to the NES version that led to Kojima straight up disowning the game.
They actually changed Metal Gear to a computer at the end of the game.
There was some pretty bad translation, including lines like, "The truck have started to move."
If a guard feels asleep, you should probably just let that guard feel asleep.
Interestingly, for games at the time, especially on the NES, Cigarettes were an item that you could use. In fact, I think it's the only item that you start with.
Yeah, and eventually had a sequel on the NES that wasn't really...
Yeah, Snake's Revenge. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Snake's Revenge is just garbage.
Metal Gear was Hideo Kojima's first game, and the poor guy is still doing them. He wants to work on other stuff, but he'll probably be doing Metal Gear forever. Ice Hockey was a Nintendo-developed game about, you guessed it, ice hockey.
Well, it also doesn't follow the rules of hockey because you slash the out of your opponent to get the puck.
Well,
that's how you play defense in the game.
And there's only 4 people on the ice. So really, it threw all the rules of ice hockey out the window.
Yeah, this was cutesy arcade, you know, Nintendo-fied arcade kind of hockey.
Fat? Medium? Small? How are you going to make your team in ice hockey for the Nintendo Entertainment System?
So for example, you have a skinny guy who's really fast but kind of gets pushed over quite a bit. And you have a medium-sized guy who's kind of average on everything. And you have the big fat ice hockey player who's slow, but he's hard to push down.
You could really mix it up, which added a lot of depth to the game.
I always like to do a team of fat guys because then it's harder for the puck to go by them. But they were always super slow.
But super powerful.
I usually went with 2 chubby guys, a skinny, and a normal guy. That's what I used to do.
Blades of Steel wasn't the only hockey game that had fights, because this one did too, but it was just a lot cuter. Just got in a big pile.
Just go and then they just
bounce off each other.
Yeah.
So it follows the same rules as Blades of Steel, where the loser of the fight gets the penalty, but not the guy who wins.
Maybe who instigated it. I don't know. Just a fun game.
John D. presents the Video Game Babes of 1988.
I'm John D. And these are the Video Game Babes of 1988. The Healing Lady from Zelda 2. The I don't know what's going on in that house, babe. Alice Landale from Phantasy Star. Vengeful Babe. Princess Toadstool from Super Mario Bros. 2. The I can dunk from the 3-point line, babe. And the girl at the end of Checkered Flag. The I should probably sue this racing team, babe. Inappropriate. Inappropriate. And those were the Video Game Babes of 1988. Did you ever know that you're my hero?